So today we're going to kind of slow down on the act of sitting. We're really going to pay attention to a number of things. The first thing we want to do is we want to open up again to this hidden body information. The body is hiding things from us every moment because otherwise we'd be overwhelmed. And what we want to find out a little bit is what are some of the rules that our body has, particularly some of the muscle behaviors and technically we call them motor behaviors. And we're gonna, by opening up, start to develop an awareness of our movement boundaries and a little bit about our individual anatomy. We sometimes call it biomechanical individuality or anatomical individuality. And in doing so, we'll identify some positions and little changes of different areas of our body that feel more comfortable. And we would encourage you that based on that information, then you would actually act on that. You would change things. Knowing, of course, that all of these changes are dynamic. So in any given moment, something may tense up. You make a little change after you notice things, and then it may tense up again a few minutes later. And it's up to you to honestly decide whether you want to change it again, because over time, you have the possibility of changing the way your body acts while sitting in a chair. So here we go. We're going to go through a little sequence. Again, there's no right way to do this. This is just a quick and easy way to remember how to kind of scan your whole body and open up to the hidden information, have an awareness of what's available to you, and make some change. We're going to start off with what is my right leg here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, kind of use big movements the first time because that's the way our body works. It's easier to recognize bigger movements than smaller movements. And I'm just going to kind of notice again how my body is behaving as I move there, and specifically looking at muscle tension of my thigh and my hip so I can find a kind of position where it starts to act a little differently. Now, a very important detail to note is that the position is important. It's actually the act of, again, exploring that open and aware process that's really creating some of this muscle sort of behavior change. But again, sometimes I have to move around to get that to be obvious. So I found it in my right. I'm going to do the same thing on my left side here and kind of explore and notice that. And as I go along, my goal is not to have to make these big movements. It's much more subtle. The next time I notice, which could be in as little as a few seconds or a few minutes, is I'm able to make a little tiny change to create a little bit of easing there. One of the key things here is that there's no relax button in the human body. You have to deliberately kind of develop some skills that change some of the muscle behaviors of our body, and that takes attention, and it takes awareness, and it takes you actually doing something about it. So now I'm going to move to my low back and pelvis. And again, we talk about this more in other videos and in the manual, but we're going to, again, just recognize we've learned a lot of rules about what is a good posture. And for the moment, we're just going to put that to the side, and we're going to be curious about what feels good and also what changes the way your body is behaving in a more useful manner. So if I was to sit up tall, one of the things that I would notice is that I'm straighter, but my back is working quite a bit. And maybe I can do it for a bit of time, but after a while, it's gonna get kind of tiring and maybe even a little sore in my low back. Now, on the other end, if I was to go real low and slouch real low, that's gonna, possibly for some people feel pretty good. And it could feel good quite a long period of time. But for other people, this may start to get sore as well. So we're going to kind of do similar to our legs, kind of exploring the boundaries of what movements are available in this position. And I'm kind of monitoring my back and my pelvis here. It's not a whole lot of movement in this position. And I'm finding that the support of this chair, the back of the chair, really actually kind of helps my body to let go a little bit. And with a little bit of playing, I can find a position where my back is a little freer and it has some options to move. Because just like I talked about with the legs, this is going to kind of go back to what it knows. It'll sort of tense up again after a few minutes. And if I'm able to make little tiny changes, a little movement here, a little movement there, to kind of feed the needs of my body may be craving some blood flow, some movement, a little bit of space. I can do it a lot more efficiently if I do a small movement versus, we usually kind of do one of these big changes when we get uncomfortable, and we can sustain a position a little bit longer, be in a seat a little bit longer with less movement when we find these sort of sweet spots where there's a lot of freedom and the movement boundaries are fairly large, or posture boundaries, however you want to look at it. So then, okay, low back's pretty good. Now, a big one that's a sticking area for people is again, kind of has to do a little bit with what we've learned in culture and healthcare and things like that. And again, we talk about more about the misunderstandings of this, but we tend to naturally tense our core. There's a number of things that are related to core tension, and it's actually hard for us to relax our core. And so, there's a couple of different ways. The two that I usually advise people to play with is, number one is just to kind of, as you're sitting here, if you were to imagine your belly button, if you were to move your breath down, and again, don't worry if you can't do it very well, but as you inhale, you start to feel a little bit of resistance. And then as you exhale, you can feel things letting go, and see if it's possible to, with a few inhales and a few exhales, to get it to soften. And for some people, they can do that within a few breaths. Not that the breathing needs to be down there, we're going to talk about that later as well, but just kind of using that as a way of trying to change the behavior. And if that doesn't do a lot, you can also actually go a little different direction. You can just simply tense the muscle, notice how much more obvious it's tense now, and then see if you can let it go. And you can tense it, and you can let it go. And you can even combine it with a little exhale if you want to. So there's the abdomen. Okay, so again, hard area. I always tell people, even if you can get a 5% change in the way that it's acting, that's a win. Take it. It's a little bit more comfortable usually. So then we kind of move to the mid-back, this thoracic here. And so that's the bottom of your rib cage to the base of your neck. And so similar to low back, we're going to play a little bit with forward and kind of notice what that might do. Might create a little bit of a stretch here. And again, some people kind of hang out here because it feels a little bit better for them. That's just a question of how sustainable it is. And then as we bring the chest up, then we notice, oh, what does that do in the back? What does that do in the front? And we're going to kind of look for a boundary again. And this time we're going to kind of maybe use side-to-side motion. Forward, see what kind of boundaries we can find there, and backward, backward. You may find you actually kind of have to reposition in the chair to figure out where can the chair help you? Where can the chair hit that mid-back and allow it to be a little bit supportive there, and figure out, oh, okay, kind of like that. Yeah, that's not too bad. And I got some options. So I start to feel my back start to tense, or something feels a little tense. I could do a little tiny movement if I had to. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of settle in there, check everything, right leg, left leg, low back, abdomen, chest, back. And I'm going to now move to the shoulders. And for the shoulders, I tell people the first thing to remember is you've got a shoulder blade. And it's oftentimes we tend to kind of move just at the ball and socket. And we really want to notice the shoulder blade because there's so much musculature of the neck and the mid-back that is connected to it. And so we're going to use a big kind of boundary we're going to explore. We're going to explore a forward boundary and feel tension and activity in the back. And then feel a backward one, feel in the front of the chest, the pecs there. And bringing our shoulder up, kind of feel those upper traps a little bit. And we're going to drop here. And we're going to try and figure out, if you have an armrest, it could be very nice to use that armrest and figure out where does that arm sort of feel sort of free and easy and very little tension. If you don't, you can just use your lap. So I've got the armrest. I'm going to take advantage of it. It's kind of nice. Do the same thing on the other side, a little forward, a little back, exploring my boundaries, and then I'm going to use that settle in. And so right now in this moment, my left shoulder likes to be a little bit more back, right shoulder a little bit more forward. The last one for a lot of people, particularly if you have some struggles with your neck, is a bit challenging. And the visual that I give people usually is just imagine that you have kind of like a bobblehead toy between your mid-back, your thoracic, and the skull being the plastic bobblehead toy at the top. And your neck, the cervical spine, is the spring, the 7 bones acting like a bit of a spring here. And what you're trying to do, you may start off with sort of the lower middle part of the neck with bigger movement like this to try and figure out your boundaries and figure out where is the easier position. And then we might start with the chin, back and forth, trying to find this position where, again, you can kind of create this bobblehead effect. And at this point in time, I really start to have people feel sort of what it feels like to be supported by the chair. You can start at the beginning this way, and that may be a good way, but now that you sort of put your attention throughout the body, it's a little easier sometimes to kind of figure out, between the positions of ease of the lower half and upper half, where does it feel like I'm really kind of sitting into my back of my legs, my sit bones, some weight in my feet, and how does my skeleton kind of support me with minimal effort, like the least amount of muscle effort I could possibly use. I want to find this sort of relatively easy, floaty position throughout. And for me, it's right there. It's kind of nice right now. And there's not a lot of effort here, and I can trust the durability and ability of my spine to just sort of hold my body in position with very little effort, very little muscle tension there. And again, if you still have some that really calls out to you, that's fine. It's just behaviors that your body is still kind of really kind of committed to. And with some time, you can make a little bit of a change on those. So with that said, again, as we mentioned before, breathing is very individual to the person, to the angle of their body, to how they are functioning in any given moment. If you're standing, if you're walking, if you're running, if you're exercising, all those things are going to kind of change how easy or how difficult it is to breathe through different areas of your body. So we're going to do just a very quick sort of scan for what feels right for me right now. And so first thing is just to kind of obviously notice your breathing. And then start to kind of notice, does it feel easy or does it feel a little bit hard? And even if it feels easy, just want you to kind of be open to maybe there's a little easier, a little bit more comfortable position. And so for me, I'm starting off a little bit in my chest here, and okay, that's the effort it takes there. And so then I'm going to move it down a little bit lower. And I'm going to move it down a little lower. And right now, the belly does feel good compared to other areas. Now there are other times, again, depending on your angle, chest is okay place to breathe. Don't have rigid rules about what's right for you, but definitely right now for me, the belly does feel better. And in terms of speed, we sometimes talk about sort of the symmetrical breath, and that's a good kind of place to start with exploring with the speed of your breath. And the rates are typically somewhere between 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, 4 in, 4 out, 5 in, 5 out. And so I'm just going to kind of play with that a little bit right now and just take inventory. And just for the sake of time, we're just going to say I already found it. And for me right now, 4 in, 4 out feels pretty good. So that is a quick way of really kind of getting a better perspective of your sitting and trying to kind of clarify what is your body's needs for sitting a little bit more comfortably. And noticing again, we've got all these different ideas and rules in our mind of what's right for us, but really the only way to find what's right for you is going to be to take a little bit of time to kind of really assess area by area, because it's hard to scan the whole body at one time, and just find what's right for you. And as you get better at this, I mean, just as I speak right here, I can make a quick change. It only takes a second or two once you really kind of learn how to kind of open up to that hidden information, explore your options, and act on that to find the more comfortable position. So hopefully this video is helpful for you, and please make sure that you continue to look at what else we offer as we release videos in the future, and follow us on different social media. Thanks so much.